Hello everyone, Gracian here. I just wanted to do a channel update for everybody. First, I'd like to say thank you so much everybody who's been watching my videos and liking and subscribing and all that and giving me comments and stuff like that. I'm really enjoying putting these videos up and playing these games for YouTube. And I love when people interact with the videos, with the comments, and ask me questions and give me their suggestions and stuff. And that's all very, very great. And I really appreciate everybody who's been watching. My views have been kind of going up a little bit over time, which is really fun to see. So just again, I just wanted to say thank you. The other reason I wanted to make this channel update was to ask you, the viewers, what game you wanted to see me play next. So I have prepared a list of 6 roguelite games. I really enjoy playing roguelites, and there's a whole bunch that I play that I've never put on YouTube before or even really mentioned. So I wanted to do a quick rundown of what some of those games are, and you are welcome to let me know in the comments what game you want to vote for. So first up is a game called Arcanium. This is a card battling roguelite, which they almost always are. This is a kind of cute, very stylized deck building game where you lead a party of 3 different heroes on a quest to save the world of Arzu from destruction. And for this list, I've prepared pros and cons for each of the games that I have, so you can kind of see, on screen right now a little bit of how it plays and what it looks like and stuff. But I'll give you some of the pros and cons, and in my opinion, everything in this entire video is going to be my opinion on these games. So take all this with a grain of salt. But pros for Arcanium is you get to mix and match your party of 3. There are multiple options for tank, DPS, and support, and there are more coming out as the game is in development. The characters have some personality to them, unlike a lot of roguelites in which you play sort of a blank slate character or even like a group of characters that are just like minions of some kind. There is lots of equipment, consumables, and deck archetypes, making the possibility of very different runs, even with the same characters. The battles in the game come in different varieties, which is a little bit unusual. So there's like standard battles where you just defeat everyone, but there's also defense battles where you have to survive a certain number of rounds. There's a sort of slay the VIP type battle. There are mini bosses and bosses in the game. I personally love the style and graphics of the game, and there's lots of decision making in combat and outside of combat. Cons for the game are the overworld in which you move around is functional but a bit bland mechanically. The deck size limit of only 12 is supposed to encourage you to make strategic choices about your deck, but I find it restrictive sometimes. The game isn't super far in development, and as such there are only a couple regions to explore, although they are both pretty cool. Next up is Tainted Grail. This is a gritty, dark fantasy world in which an island called Avalon has mysteriously entered this kind of hell state, and all the people in it have either gone kind of crazy or died. The game features a mechanic in which you must keep a special candle or torch lit to stave off this magical darkness that twists the world around you. When it's burning bright, you get bonuses, and when it's low, you get penalties, which adds a level of strategy to your runs. When do you burn your candles, and when do you push forward through the darkness, and your next combats are going to be hard. The oppressiveness of the atmosphere is quite high, especially when your candle is running low and you're not sure exactly what you're looking at in the darkness ahead of you. That's a really fun thing, is to sort of strain your eyes and try to like pan the camera around and try to get a sense of what that horrible looking monster is in the dark ahead of you. And you can recruit NPCs out in the dark to live in your village and then upgrade their house and their shop, and you can upgrade your village and stuff. So across the runs, it's not just adding new cards or powers available to your character, you're also upgrading your hub, which is a cool mechanic. Cons for the game are, while the atmosphere is great, the visuals are subpar. It's hard to actually resolve quests and errands because they usually involve stumbling across that NPC again in the future in a different run. So you may meet someone that's like, oh, talk to me again next time you find me and we'll figure out how to go and find that thing. And then you don't know when you're going to see that character again. And there's not always as much decision making in each round of combat as you might expect. Sometimes it's just sort of dump your hand in almost any order, and it doesn't really matter. It really had more to do with what you drew than the cards you decided to play that round. As far as the Eye is a unique game in the roguelite category, this one is a turn-based resource management strategy game about guiding a mobile village to safety before the floodwaters rise and sort of erase the landscape in sort of a cyclical pattern that I don't know if it's occurring over eons or over just like a couple years or something, but there's like this pattern of everybody spreads out, colonizes the world, and then they have to return to this place called the Eye to avoid the floodwaters. Pros for this game are it is cute as hell. I love the look of the little resources, the little animals, the wind blowing across the tiles, the way that characters suck up the resources they're assigned to. And there are lots of skills and specialties for your little characters to learn. So you've got a character that's chopping wood all the time and is going to start, not only will become really good at that and you can choose some perks for them, but they actually visually change as their job changes. And they're all like little animals and they're super cute. Cons for as far as the Eye is there's a fair amount of passing turns without doing anything while you're waiting for resources to accumulate or characters to get somewhere. So it's not always going to be the most action-packed game to watch. In fact, there's very little action. It's really more about planning out and executing your resource collection and moving on to the next zone before the flood arrives. And it feels a bit like the world chooses how your run will go rather than you choosing how to develop your characters. When you look at the map and it says you're going to need resource X or resource Y to move on, that doesn't give you a lot of leeway in how you want to play on the randomly generated map that you're on. You have to collect, say, ore and wood to move on, so why spend any time teaching somebody how to fish? Next up is Gordian Quest. This is a game about a sinister curse that's corrupting the land, and you must put together a team of 3 heroes to root out the evil. The pros for Gordian Quest are there are lots of characters to choose from, and each of them has multiple ways to build. So, for instance, there's a ranger character who can build putting traps on the ground under enemies, or like classic shooting arrows, or you can build machines like a cannon turret or a ballista turret. So that's really fun. So each character has different ways. Like there's also a cleric character who can build sort of a healer or a tank or a dealing holy damage. Or you can mix and match. You can do a little bit of all of that, and I've tried that, and it's super fun. There's tons of equipment and items that change how your decks work for your characters. Characters have multiple ways to get stronger, such as stat points and perks. The game features role-playing events with consequences, so it's not just moving around and battling. Making camp to rest is also a strategic part of the game. It costs resources if you don't find a special resting node. And during that, it's sort of like a little mini game where your 3 characters will do different things, like who you're going to have gathering supplies. If they gather supplies, it's going to give them exhaustion because they're not resting, but then you'll have more supplies for later. Is somebody going to spend some time training or talking to another character to develop a relationship? Or is anybody just going to sleep the whole time just so they can rest up and get rid of all of their exhaustion? Characters also have a relationship status with each other that can grant bonuses, so you can try to spend time during resting to have them develop that relationship with each other. The characters, especially the enemy models, look really good. And there is lots of decision making both in combat and outside of combat. Cons for the game are that it can be a bit swingy in terms of the entire run. My first run was so easy it was almost boring, and just recently in a different run I lost a nearly full health character in 1 hit, which really screwed me over for the boss fight. You can get defeated characters back, but once you lose one it's kind of hard because you get kind of behind. And another con is that there's maybe a bit too many systems to manage. Now, the developers have mentioned that they're paying attention to what people are saying and they're tweaking things around, but right now there's the stats, the decks, the skill trees, the items, the perks. There's a lot of different things to manage at once, and if you want to be fiddly with your characters, that's great, but if you want to just go and fight, you may be spending a little bit more time than you want in between nodes trying to figure out the best way to build your characters. Next up is Star Renegades. There is a warning that your dimension will soon be overrun by a powerful invasion force. You have to lead a group of scrappy heroes to stop this empire from consuming your reality. Pros for this game are it is absolutely beautiful. It is one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. The character sprites, the particle effects, the animations, everything is just done with incredible care and style. There is challenging combat with a more puzzle-based approach to reaching victory. Attacks have a different amount of time it takes and then a different amount of stagger on the enemies, so you're trying to kind of knock them around in the turn order so that they don't get to do what they wanted to. It's fun to plan out your movement on the overworld and explore for loot and important mini-boss fights, and the overworld looks gorgeous. The cons for Star Renegades is, while I can appreciate the sense of urgency that the overworld movement system creates, can also feel a bit restrictive. I want to explore the whole beautiful map and fight all the bad guys and collect all the stuff, but unfortunately I will only have enough time to do about half of it. And the complexity of combat ramps up as you gain more characters and encounter tougher fights, and it can feel a bit unwieldy sometimes. And last but not least is Trials of Fire. This game is about leading a group of 3 through the post-apocalyptic fantasy wasteland, scavenging what you can and growing more powerful to survive. There are some quest missions, or you can do sort of like a randomly made adventure. Pros for this game are there's great character art and design. Each character plays very differently, and there's a fair amount of build variety. The atmosphere of the world has a great feel to it. Landmarks you visit will show you the chance of combat, an event, or finding loot. These events are simple but fun deviations from combat. Characters in combat share a pool of action points, adding a lot of tactical decision to which cards you'll discard for more action points and which cards you'll play. Discarded cards can also be used for basic movement or a small amount of defense, making each turn challenging but very manageable mini puzzle. Cons for this game are the visuals and graphics are serviceable but nothing spectacular. The combat arenas feel very samey after a short while. They're all the same sort of rectangle with a few points of cover. The dedication to making the overworld feel post-apocalyptic, unfortunately, also makes it feel a bit bland. So those are the 6 roguelite games I'm considering playing for YouTube next. Please let me know in the comments what you want to see me play. I'm going to continue doing Planetfall every other day like I've been doing. It's certainly my most watched series. So I will continue on my pattern of having 3 games running at once, Planetfall, and then 2 other games, and they're typically going to be kind of strategy games. But if you'd like to vote on which of these 6 games you'd like to see next, please let me know in the comments. I would also really appreciate if you would like and subscribe. And if you have any other questions or comments or anything like that, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Again, my name is Gordian. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll continue to see everybody, not only for the continuation of my Planetfall empire, but any other games that I end up playing on my channel. So thanks again.